So before we begin, I formally welcome all the distinguished panelists for this session, and we are actually looking forward to listen all of you. From my side, as a host for the day, again I am saying good afternoon and formal welcome to our audience, to our panelists, and to each and everyone. Today, as our panelists have gathered today to discuss the topic which is on demand, we want to discuss innovation, leadership, and future workforce. And that question is popping in everyone's mind. But before I start listening and asking the question to our panelist, I just want to give a thought to all the viewers who are listening this conversation. Just ask to yourself that manufacturing in the future will not be defined by machines as we are seeing nowadays. Rather, it would be defined by the mindset which we are going to build in today's discussion. We all know that factories for the manufacturing are future ready. These factories are already there, and we all have witnessed the recent AI summit. And we all have seen that AI is optimizing now the decisions. The robotics are transforming all the production lines. But ask a question to yourself that what is a real transformation and where it is happening. That's what we are going to focus today in today's discussion. That real transformation is happening in the leadership rooms when we discuss, when we speak about breaking barriers, when we speak about having resilience, and when we speak about having determinations. I believe last year we also gathered for such kind of discussions, but this year discussions will evolve further. This year probably we are not asking that whether women belongs to manufacturing, because I believe, and I believe all the panelists also believe, that that chapter is already closed. So today we are here to ask something which is far more strategic, something which is far more important for all of us, that who is shaping the future of manufacturing. I believe that is a question which is posing to us, because manufacturing today is not the same when it was few decades ago. Today's manufacturing is smarter, it is digital, it is sustainable, and it is more collaborative. So now I want to start this discussion with all our esteemed panelists who have gathered today to define the influence, to define the capability, and to define the impact. And without doing a further ado, I just want to move up to our first panelist. And I would like to first address the elephant in the room. And for that, I'm moving to Sarika. Sarika, I just want to understand from you that we talk a lot about engineering driven organizations, where we say that the people earn credibility through technical depth and through performance as well. So from you, having the background of operations and engineering leaderships, we want to understand that what are the defining factors according to you so that we can establish authority in this domain. And in addition to that, how you would address the audience inside the room and all the viewers, that how engineers can accelerate this journey towards this change. Over to you, Sarika. Sarika, you are on mute.
Yeah. So, good afternoon, everybody. So happy to be here and thank you for inviting me. And yes, a very interesting question for me, something which I actually probably struggled with when I joined this industry. So you're asking me about, authority and technical expertise and then getting credibility. So authority, when I joined this industry, I came as a chemical engineer, but not knowing anything about this industry. But authority was given to me by position, given to me by privilege, right? So that's easy. But credibility, I had to earn it at every step. So credibility can come only through knowledge and knowledge, upskilling, learning, and that is where then the purpose comes, the clarity comes, and that's the only way to go ahead there. And authority then automatically follows.
Great, Sarika. That is leading me towards the further thing. You are talking about credibility, you are talking about knowledge, you are talking about authority. Now, again, I want to address the second elephant in the room, which is innovation. And for that, I'm heading towards Arati. Arti, the moment Sarika is saying about that we need to build credibility, knowledge with this technical domain, how you are seeing innovation over there? And the popping question is coming here when we are talking about innovation, how to go hand in hand with the operational excellence. So, how you are seeing these two domains, maybe 5 years or 10 years down the line?
Yeah, great question, Megha. Thank you for having me here on the panel as well with the esteemed lineup of speakers and yourself. Um, it's a time to leapfrog, and to leapfrog innovation is what will enable us to get there. And if we look at where we are poised today as a nation of 1.4 billion, where you see that not more than 48% are in the workforce to begin with. And if you look at women, it's again 48% of women of the population, out of which they're very minuscule number in manufacturing. So I feel, like you rightly said, we all need to contribute. And what we need to build into each one of us is innovation. Innovation in product, innovation the way we get things done. So there would be three pillars that I would like to highlight. One would be technology, the other talent, and then finally the trust. Trust it comes through capability, it comes through capacity building. When someone looks to us as a nation, do they see that they can trust and collaborate with us to build the workforce of the future, to be the manufacturing hub of the future? Do they believe that we can bring out technology that would meet global standards? Because we are not only catering to our country's needs, but to contribute to the global needs. So innovation at every layer of what we build in is very essential. And I think that's how I would like to position my, point of view.
Great, Arti. So, if I could understand your point well, I am leading with three important T's which you have given to us just now: the technology, talent, and trust. So
Right.
these three T's are heading me towards one of the technology experts. I'm heading towards Ruchita now. Ruchita, the technology is actually driving me towards you. You come from a testing plant, and the moment we say testing, it means it is giving us a feeling of precision, zero errors. Now you are coming from this background, you have seen this industry evolving in the last many years. How you are seeing that actually when we are talking about industry 4.0, so where is the skill gap here? Is it in the capabilities, or how the people need to build this gap so that we can actually talk about industry 4.0?
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Megha, and of course, WIMA and OEM for this great platform to share my views. So basically, coming from a manufacturing domain for more than now, I think 25 years that I've worked in this domain, I've seen there is a lot of course, the breaking of the ice ceiling actually happened much later, because there are very few women. Earlier when I started off my journey, there were very few women in the manufacturing roles or domains. Now we see that changing, and there's a lot of course, women. Currently you see more and more diversity in the technical roles, being established in organizations. And I think we ourselves in our own company, as well as what I see in the ecosystem around me, there is a lot of hands-on engineering and R&D work which is being done by women today, and across the rungs, be it on the shop floor, be it in design, sales and marketing roles, functional areas. So there's a lot of meaningful high-tech work being done by women engineers. And I mean, kudos to that. And companies are actually also playing a vital role in recruiting more and more women in those roles. There is a lot of system integration, digitalization, upskilling work happening in this domain. And I see, of course, there's still more to do in the domain. There already is a lot which is being done. So we do find that the gap is sort of getting minimalized or shortened, I would say. There's roles like quality assurance, calibration, and safety engineering roles, which are actually being filled up by women engineers. And also, organizations actually are benefiting by having women elevated to these, engineering roles or program management roles, because they are by default, excellent at cross-functional or multitasking roles as well, and their technical competence just adds to it. And also, we've seen this in our own organization, as I mentioned, and the other ecosystem as well. So there is a lot which is being done, and I think we are seeing this will only the diversity there will only keep growing as we go along. So, I think a lot of barriers which were there, erstwhile barriers, which were stereotypes, like women, shop floors aren't safe for women. That's changing. Of course, you see that very much happening around us. So those stereotypes of cultural biases are over. Of course, there's a lot of, exposure and roles that women are getting where they're having more visibility on the shop floor at leadership roles in the technical areas as well. So I think all in all, I see a very positive move there. And I think it's a welcome move for all in the manufacturing domain.
Oh, spot on. So Rujita has given a multiple pointer. She's talking about diversity. She's talking about cultural difference. She's talking about more women at the workforce. Now, the moment you are giving us the pointer of diversity, so again, I'm heading towards Amita now. Amita, I want to understand from you this diversity perspective. Because I still remember when we started talking about diversity, it was coming to us as a compliance that yes, have more diverse population. And the meaning diverse means have more women population. That's the only meaning of diversity for us. But actually, I want to understand that is it bringing some ROI for the business perspective, or it is still just a stigma on which we are moving ahead? How you will define diversity now?
Yeah, hi, good evening, everyone, and thank you, WIMA, OEM, and all the panelists for welcoming me here. And it's always great to come back to these sessions. So, some of the topics have always been our favorite ones. Of course, the manufacturing has been the one of the favorite topics, and it's of course a moment of pride also for me to say where I began my career with the manufacturing industry, and sitting today at the position of the vice president, I'm still at a manufacturing unit and enjoying a beautiful journey over here. Now, when we talk about the diversity, is no more a compliance, it's no more imperative. Now we have come to something which is something a necessity. Now, when we say about the diversity and when we only include the gender part, I think that's becoming more biased over here. Diversity, which means that we have more people from more regional areas, having more graphics into our system and aligning our system in a way where everyone is heard. So it's not only having people in the system and not giving them a place to voice their opinions. That would be a bad thing. When you have diversity at a workplace, that adds a lot of value to the decisions you make. Today, when we talk about the digitalization, when we talk about the automation, when we talk about the sustainability, it's not that what decisions you are making, it's about how well decisions you are making, and that is where it comes from, the diversity point. Now, when you have the diversity, in case if it's a woman, or we talk about the regional diversity also, you definitely add couple of pointers over here. So one is the risk intelligence. So there's something I may think in a certain manner, but a person from a different background or a different regional background or a region would consider it in a different manner. So that is where you actually break the barriers of the workmanship also. It makes it lot easier. Decisions when taken in a diverse environment often leads to better goals also. When I say that, I mean that probably when we are making long-term decisions, there's a way or a perspective which a person from a different background can add. I can only contribute in a certain way. A person can only contribute to a certain way. Or I would even like to mention here, a gender would always contribute in a certain manner. But when you have a women opinion or some kind of remarks added from them, they will automatically be a more diverse platform, I would say. So definitely, in case if you want that the decisions regarding the automation, digitalization, sustainability, if they have to have a bigger picture in the future, you need to have diversity at a bigger level, not only as a compliance but as a business imperative, I would say. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Abita. And when we are talking a lot about diversity, so the next needle, the compass moves towards the hiring of diversity. And that is actually taking me towards the Sujata. Sujata, again, that is the one more big elephant in the room, that diversity hirings. So actually, we are curious to know that probably that could be a disruptive question, but are actually companies and organizations making the policies for inclusions just for the sake of inclusivity, or actually they are seeking the diversity and inclusion for the better performance of the organization? How is your say about it? How you as an HR seeing the entire perspective?
Okay, so first of all, good evening to the whole panel, and thank you, Vaima. Thank you, Dr. Megha, for inviting me. Thank you, Neelam. Yes, I think more or less everyone has spoken about, like with the way Sarika spoke about upskilling, Rujita spoke about the social, the influence, or the way Aarti talk about collaborative. Amita spoke about diversity right now. Yes, there have been a lot of things, but right now what I feel is rather than just designing policies for inclusion, we should redesigning system for inclusion. So when I say redesigning system for inclusion, which means that we need to think about the structures, the role structures, the models, the career progression, very basic thing, the leadership accountability. So inclusion is no longer a social initiative. The way very rightly Amita said that it's no longer a social initiative. It is a business imperative for a competitive manufacturing future. So I feel that when we talk about diversity, it is not only women, but yes, it is the complete diversity, whether it is ethnicity or gender. And we should think about system-driven inclusion rather than just designing policies. And we have been doing in Aditya Birla Group. There are many businesses that we have gone beyond, and we are redesigning, reframing the policies that way. In that matter, even the POSH policy, which was earlier very dedicatedly given to only women, but now it is absolutely not that way. So this is my take on this. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Sujata, for bringing in few sensitive points to the surface. That yes, we are actually living in a competitive environment. And in the competitive environment, now I'm heading towards Chetali for this particular question. That Chetali, the moment you say that you are coming from logistics, and what we have seen that logistics and supply chains, they are so competitive and resilient as well. So how you are seeing that impact of diverse leadership in influencing the logistic ecosystem, how we are positioning ourselves in the global platform in terms of handling the crisis, the agility with the involvement of diverse leadership, specifically in the logistic ecosystems.
Thank you, Dr. Megha, and good evening to all. Wonderful set of questions prior to mine and lovely answers. With this, I have to say that logistics has always been male oriented and male dominated. It's no longer like that anymore. And probably in the last decade or a decade and a half, we have seen a drastic change. We have leadership positions which are now opening up for women. So we've always had women at the lower levels, middle levels. We didn't have, even if we had women at the top levels, they weren't doing the entire they were not doing the entire gamut of work. They would be in different departments. However, that has changed now because we have women who have their own customs brokers license. And also we have women who own their own freight forwarding companies or a combination of two and become a logistician. Having said that, it is an absolute no-brainer that women are better at multitasking. Women have a different point of view as compared to the men when they have to tackle the same problem. And this is very much clear now. It's very visible now in the industry because you keep two people of the same experience with the same set of years working and give them the same problem, both of them are going to approach it differently. Does that mean that the the problem is what is solved by a woman is better than a man. Not necessarily, but we just have a different way of thinking. That is bringing in more empathy. It's bringing in more changes in the way the offices are run, to the extent that now it is compulsory that the government of India has set out programs, has set out initiatives where they require women at every single point. Diversity is no longer something which is, a topic that you speak about after hours on cocktails, but it is actually happening in offices. Companies are now resetting themselves up infrastructure wise, whether we talk airports, we talk ports, all of that. We have had one groundbreaking notice that has come from the government, an initiative where they have said that for for the government organizations and all, you need to have feeding areas for women and all. Ask, was this available 10 years ago? It was not. But now there is no shame in saying the government has come up with an initiative that they are giving, paid menstrual leave. But in my organization, we did this almost about 6, 7 years ago. We were the first one in India to do this from the logistics part. So because I'm a woman and I'm at the management level, it makes a huge difference that way. And women have been contributing. We have companies where now they're taking women on the flop shore. So we have forklift operators, we have heavy equipment operators. At the ports, you are going to have young girls who are going to operate the gantry cranes. They're going to go up and control those $1 million worth of containers and all. So it's an explosion and it's a wonderful time right now.
So thank you, Chatali, for bringing in all the government initiatives which the government is taking. And the moment you are speaking about all the initiatives government is taking, I was actually thinking and I was actually asking to myself, then all the time we are looking to others, that what others are doing to us. Because see, the today's panel discussion is also about women in manufacturing. So that question is leading me towards Sujal, because Sujal is also coming from a very different and male-dominated industry, that's a firefighting company. Sujal, help me to understand. For the last couple of minutes, we are talking about that. Yes, we are talking about inclusive leadership. We are talking about allyship. We are talking about diversity. How you, as a leader, is seeing the entire perspective. What biases are coming in front of us as leaders before anything else comes in front of us? How do you address all those biases which are coming to you as a leader, and how you challenge them, how you address them?
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Megha, for this question, and thank you for having me here, WIMA. It is indeed a pleasure sharing the screen with such wonderful panelists. So so today's topic, I mean, whatever discussions you are having with the other panelists, and I have been listening. I think this is really very, very important for us, because we are the people who are sitting in the top managements of the manufacturing companies or the other companies. And if we do not do it, who else will? I mean, there has to be a beginning, and we must ensure that we are walking the talk. Now, a lot of biases that come across, while we operate. However, before that, based on my multi-sector exposure, as in I work for manufacturing background, but by education, I am an IT engineer, and I have been part of a lot of organizations where I take care of policy advocacies and ecosystem leadership. So I would like to respond this, from an angle of governance and accountability, as well as some system design leveling. So first of all, I would like to say that inclusion, it must move from conversations to capital allocation now. It is high time. I mean, gone are the days where, we were just talking about inclusion. And yes, I mean, it is also, this might sound funny, but to bring diversity, we talk about inclusivity. Okay. And to be more inclusive, again, we have to be diverse. I mean, one of the panelists, that is what she was mentioning, that we have to be diverse. Otherwise, there's no inclusion as well. So we must move from conversations to capital allocation, both inside the companies as well as in our respective industries. I mean, be it logistics or be it, I see somebody from Aditya Birla, and I am from manufacturing. There are a couple of other from manufacturing. So any industry per se, we have to be, more talking about the capital allocation. Now, hiring women is one thing. So we should shift from representation to decision-making rights. So we have started hiring women. Yes, we have done that right. Then we have started mentoring women. Yes, we have done that right as well. We have also, even started celebrating women. So I think we are progressing in the right direction. But now it is high time that we also make, decision making. We give them the decision making rights as well. So in my organization, this is what I am trying to do. I am trying to shift from representation to decision rights. I am trying to shift things from, mentorship to sponsorship. Now, mentorship alone is not, that is not all nowadays. So only having a mentor or, mentoring somebody is not enough. It should, the narrative should change from mentorship to sponsorship. As in, even if the person is not around you, or the person is not around somebody who is a mentor, we should be able to say that, oh, so and so person, I think she is right for this job, and I think I have, immense faith in her capabilities, and let us give it a try. As in, so the narrative has to change. Only mentorship is not enough. We have to talk about sponsorship as well now. And of course, making, making inclusion as a measured KPI. Now, this might, this might seem quite far-fetched to some of the people who are hearing, but then yes, if I have to be really disruptive and if I have to be honest about this, I think in manufacturing, what gets measured gets improvised. Okay. So organizations and industry bodies, they must really start tracking the percentage of women leadership roles, the percentage of women speakers at conferences, for example. Okay, just having, just having conferences and, gathering people and talking about women inclusion should not be enough. There has to be like the percentage of women in technical committees or in the top management. These should be part of the KPIs for the organizations, is what I feel. Because if inclusion is not reviewed in the board meetings or governing councils, it simply remains symbolic. And that is what we have been discussing so far, right? That we have to make it happen. It cannot remain symbolic. So this is, this was from the angle where I talk about the industry or the organizations. Now, if I'm talking about the associations, like there are so many associations. If we talk about logistics, or if we talk about manufacturing, there are so many associations. Now, what these associations also have to carry the weight of, making things right, or improvising the things. So basically, there should be a redesigning of technical visibility platforms. Like I said, if there's a conference, there should be a percentage of women who get visibility. If there are committees, there should be women who should be on the top of these committees, creating leadership pipelines. Not just women wings. There are a lot of organizations that I see where they have a women wing. Okay, there would be like a master organization, and then there would be a women wing. So of course, having women wing is the starting point. It's very good. But then from that women wing, there should be leadership pipelines that can be created. There can be certification and skill acceleration programs. So if you are seeing a certain gap, but the person has a capability, but there is a gap in the skill, there can be certification and skilling programs, which I think a lot of associations have started doing nowadays. And of course, the transparency, the data transparency. I would have, I would have come across a lot of female members where they say that, oh, they have given me this role, but you know what? I don't know what exactly is happening in the organization. So even if, some of the female members, they are given a certain role, the transparency is not there. So there should be an annual inclusion report card kind of a thing where, the data transparency is made mandatory for certain level of roles. And of course, at last, I would say that inclusion has to be diverse. So when we talk about allyship, it should not only come from the females, as in, yes, females have learned to fix each other's grounds, is what I believe. Today we are in the times where we can easily fix each other's grounds, but then we also require male members. We also require, the entire male community to be our allies as well. So whatever, however way that can happen, that is also very important for us to take care of the inclusion. And there, of course, there are, I mean, if all of these things are done, the unconscious biases would be taken care of automatically. Now, these biases are, they can be like, oh, because she's a female, she can only do this. She comes with a lot of baggage. She has 2 kids, or she cannot take up a technical role. She cannot take up a certain type of a role. So I think if we take care of all these things, the biases are gone automatically. Yeah.
Thank you, Sujal, for bringing in multiple keywords. I'll definitely get back to all those keywords. But before I move on to further in this discussion, I actually want to understand from Neelam, who has seen this manufacturing journey so closely. She has lived all the different crests and troughs in this manufacturing journey. So, Neelam, again, a very crucial question. We all are talking about that yes, diversity should be there, inclusion should be there, this all should be done. But I believe there is one more sensitive issue which probably we are missing out, that is the drop off of the women, which you have seen very closely. No matter how much inclusivity or diversity we are talking about, that is a real challenge. The workforce is dropping off. How you have seen this, that at which level, at the entry level, mid level, senior level, leadership level, at which level you have seen the drop off, and how we can address this, what solutions you can bring up to for those workforce who are actually coming but leaving.
Sure. Thank you, Megha. Thank you, OEM update. And I'm so happy to see all the WIMA ambassadors who are here to speak on this. So, Megha, the question is right, and I'll give you the industry data. These are the survey data. So, as per the SEDA data, which is the industry, body to collect on the data. Currently, we have, and I'm talking about manufacturing and allied industry, around 17 to 19% of the women participation, and this includes both at all the different level, including the contract levels. Now, and just to give you, this percentage has not moved significantly over 2 decades. And this is, as I said, I am not pulling up the data from my this thing. This is the data what companies' data is saying. That means we all at different levels has been saying, oh, there is so much of things being done. You won't believe there are some sectors like cement sector, heavy engineering sector, they have just 3 to 5%, even lesser than that. That shows that these industries are still struggling. And I'll just give you also you talked about the different levels. Currently at out of this 17 to 18%, the entry level, the freshers and all, they are 33%. I'll skip the mid level and I'll come to the mid level again. The senior level are around 17% and the board level are around 20%. The mid level is the lowest of all these percentage data that I gave it. That means the maximum, this is the leakage point that's been happening. And we all can understand here why this mid level is the most leakage point. The reason is more than 30% of the women are leaving at this sector and they are not coming back as a part of the workforce. I know many companies will say we have started a rejoining program, restart program, but somehow the data is not showing that there is an impact getting made, because and that is why the mid management band is getting struggling. I always say is that, for women's career, the careers graph and the life cycle graph is inversely proportional. The moment we start going up in our career, we also start having different responsibilities at our life stages. And this is the stage, that is the reason, this middle stage, this 5 to 10 or 12 years of experience range, that's where they are dropping. And that means there is a support that requires. I really like Sujata's point that, hiring is not a problem today. It is their retention and the career progression is the point today that we need to discuss what all as an industry we can, do. And one more point, I keep on visiting colleges and I do keep on asking. Yesterday also I was, and I asked the college, how many of you are interested to join the manufacturing sector? I didn't get even a single hand raised. And it is not only women, it is just the students. The thing is, students who are the entry level, they are not seeing this as an aspirational industry. This might hurt some of the people who are listening this at the other. But the point here is we as a leader, we as the leader of the sector need to make this industry aspirational. Because if our inflow is not going to be right, naturally we are not going to have this. And whether it is, and it is not only the women, even the other people, the males are also not very aspiring to join this sector. So that means we are going to have the crunch of the workforce, which we are already feeling. And I can ask all the leadership women also who are hiring, they know that there is a struggle in hiring people at the different levels. And women, it is a big, and that is where the whole concept of WIMA, Mega, that we started in, that we wanted to help on the industry, that, addressing those focused problem, like I was telling the middle management, the middle career level issues, why they are dropping. Can there be a career navigator who can help them? Because this is this crucial time to support them both mentally from their career side, from the different mentoring angle, so that they retain in the workforce, they don't leave. Even if they leave, what are the other things that can be worked along with the industry so that they come back as a part of the workforce? Because when they are leaving, we are losing a skilled, you know, workforce that is going out of the workforce. So that is where all that we are. But this is the data, guys, and this data is shocking data in terms of that we have not moved our scale much in terms of participation. And when we are dreaming of Viksit Bharat 2047 having a 30 trillion economy, it cannot be achieved when the 50% of our population is not part of this workforce. And that's exactly the vision that we are working at WIMA. Thank you, Megha.
Thank you, Neelam, for giving us the real data and a bombarding question and a thought provoking question. And with this question, I'm heading towards Aarti. Aarti, Neelam talked about the leakage point in the skill building, leakage point when the mid level career people they are leaving the workforce. How we can fix this leakage according to you? Because we are talking about innovation, we are talking about industry 4.0. According to you, any method, any policy, any system which can help us to fix this gap so that we are moving towards innovation at a rapid and a faster rate?
I mean, she shared some real, you know, very, very crucial points out there. And, the response to attracting talent in the manufacturing sector with our challenges that exist. We have to make it attractive. We have to do something about it. And I think we're entering a very exciting time. We're entering an exciting time when digitalization enters the shop floor. I think that makes this entire ecosystem more vibrant. Now comes the point that you asked, that how do we attract? So definitely, maybe we have to be a little more active in the way we approach talent. There are many such bodies, industry bodies that you see that are opening up their doors. And how do we place those profiles out for them to come into that space, make themselves available, and maybe flexibility is the answer here. So I think that to attract this segment to begin with, we may need to have some flexible modules of training, flexible modules of entering the workforce, and make it more accessible. A very good point that was brought out on capital allocation, right? So I think to build this ecosystem, one is you have platforms today, such as WIMA and others, which give you a access point. Now, how does industry interact with these? How can, say, the academic institutions and industries work together to give a safe haven for entry, or rather re-entry? So I think we will need to build an ecosystem around it. Though platforms are being formed, we need to make it more accessible. I think knowledge around these interventions is required, I would say.
Thank you, Aarti. You actually, yes, Amita, you raised your hand.
Yeah, so I'll just, add to what has been, discussed so far. So most of us have crossed that middle level situation where we also face certain complexities or certain hindrances or certain barriers with our career. And someone has been very, very supportive. Someone held our hand and we were able to pass through that journey. Now, most of us are sitting at the leadership positions. And I think primarily once we are sitting on those positions, it's rests on our shoulders to create such an environment also. I would really like to, though we are in the process of structuring our different verticals and businesses. I would specifically want to point out was few of the women in my organization where they are independently handling, their particular functions. So first come, which is like, though we are a deep tech company, very new in the technology field of water. My technical lead is a lady. She's based out of Chennai. I don't want to name her name. She's there in the webinar itself. She's a double doctorate from the Korea University. We wanted to bring her to Delhi due to her certain complications. She was not able to come, and considering the talent she has, we decided to retain her there itself in Chennai. And then she's such a superb resource for me and for the entire organization. So we are super proud of her. That's one function. Second function HR, we always know it's like most of the time it's like very female oriented, but then that is where I encourage my the HR lady also to develop certain skills which she has not done so far in the or a decade of her career. That is where this is the time she can grow and pick up few skills. Third is my export sector. So my export vertical is solely headed with one of my, again, the lady again is in the webinar. I don't want to name it because it's an open forum, but she single-handedly does beautiful job. So these are like, few pillars of my organizations. We can very well, rest on them, credible, very loyal, true to their work, never had any problem. And then I consider this as my personal duty also. And then that's always a top down approach, which happens in the organizations. So the kind of culture you build in, that is how it automatically flows down, rather than as a bottoms up approach. It comes down from the top. So I also try to make it a point wherever there's a way I can, I can help them or probably help them progress in their journey, I definitely do it. So that's one standpoint I would like to mention over here. And then, of course, giving to the fact that we are sitting at those positions is more of our responsibility. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Amita. Over to you, Sarika.
Yeah, so I wanted to share, from taking off from where Aarti was speaking about. So I was attending a conference and I, put up this question to the speaker. It was on HR and women, getting women joining the manufacturing industry. And I spoke about how we are struggling to attract women. And the question the speaker asked me was that, ma'am, have you opened the doors for them? Or are you saying, walk into my parlor and shut the door? So I was like taken aback. I said, I'm sorry, I don't know what you mean. I thought about it. And she says, are you working on a Sunday or are you working on a Thursday? Do you give a Sunday off or not? And that's what got me thinking. The systems are being designed, when the industrialization took place, they were designed for the men, right? The patriarchy starts from there. And so you have the MSCB shut down on a Thursday in Pune so that men could go out and do all the work and the bank work and etc. And that's why you have Sunday working. So that was a thought, like, I mean, there's so many changes that one has to start making in, it's also changing the systems to attract women so that they can work more, work in this, in the manufacturing. There's so much more to be done. And like Aarti said, flexibility and flexibility cannot come. I mean, that's a question that I raised in fact, our last production meeting to all the men, all the executives out there, all the engineers from the factory. I said, what if you've been struggling to find skilled manpower? I said, what if I tell you that take women and let's give them a 4-day week or a 5-day week? So would you be able to work with that? So there's a lot of, I think, mindsets which need to change, but I think definitely flexibility will be the only way to go ahead in this. Otherwise, it will still be tough.
Thank you, Aarti, for bringing in this element of flexibility, and we could see how flexible our panelists were going on for this discussion. That was the beauty of this panel discussion. The moment we are talking about changing the policies and bringing in flexibility and changing the systems and designs, Sujata, I'm coming to you then. As a leader in the HR practices, how do you see that how we can open the door with Sarika is saying that yes, now we are ready to welcome the diverse workforce in terms of policy, in terms of structural design, in terms of bringing in the element of flexibility and acceptance, how you
Right.
will open the door?
Yeah, so in fact, when Aarti and Sarika was talking about flexibility, exactly this is what even we have been talking. And very recently, we came up with We the Change, and that's where the women cohort we were talking about. And actually, they said the same thing, that if women, even in my support function, women have been talking about that if the male fraternity on the shop floor, if they are working in shifts, why don't we get 5-day working, or we can come alternate Saturdays, that flexibility, or say hybrid. But being in the plant vicinity, we are unable to do so. But yes, two things when we are talking about attracting talent from outside. The way Neelam was talking, even I visit a lot of campuses, and when we talk to the women or male in that matter, they have the same thing, that do you really, when we talk about that you want to come to manufacturing or IT, and immediately the hands are up for the IT rather than manufacturing. So that gap we are seeing over here as HR heads also in manufacturing industry. One big thing that today we are talking about the gap is that technology, yes, technology is great, but when we are attracting talent or when we are taking interviews also, we are seeing more how people are creative, how people are adaptive, and how they can think out of the box, because technology is going to change. It's going to happen that way. But when we are attracting talent, we are saying that okay, you come, you will be getting not the flexibility of work, but being Aditya Birla Group, again I'm saying, we have wide range of, after 2 years we have the policy that they can move to their nearest location, or they can move across businesses. That is the beauty of coming into a big name, big business. So that's the attraction point for me, as when I'm talking about in my manufacturing sector or in campuses or in interviews. So two things when I see as a recruiter, I see attitude, aptitude, capabilities, rather than what kind of education. Yes, education is important, but these are the things where they can work long with us. And second, what attracts them is the group name, the group possibilities, the world of opportunities, what we say. That is what we can give to them. And not only that, the way we say that you can learn, relearn, unlearn, because here the learning and development, the Gyanodaya setup, what we have, it's amazing. So these are the attraction points for me in manufacturing, where one part is that. Secondly, here we have been showing them the growth. When we take in production department, we say you come as a GET, and you will move as a production head. So that is the growth what we are talking about in years, in coming years. But in immediate, in say in 3 years, we say that you work as a GT over here. In a year or 2 years span, you will become an assistant manager or a section head, because that's the fast track growth that we are showing them. So that is the attraction point. These are the two segments what we are doing over here in Century and Aditya Birla Group. Thank you.
Great pointer, Sujata, that you are telling that yes, how we are showing them their journey ahead. And now I've seen just a flip of the coin here. We were talking about giving them certain flexibility, and now you have added one more vertical to it, being more truthful to them. Now I want to understand from Rujita, because Rujita, you are also dealing with a lot of workforce at the shop floor and in the testing plant. If we can see the different angle of attracting the people, if I remove the word attracting the different or the diverse workforce and being more truthful to them, that yes, we will not give you some additional benefits, we will keep you at par with others, now you see and build up your career, how you are being truthful, honest, blunt, and at the same time giving the attraction to the diverse talent.
So I think bullseye, because this is something I've always resonated with, Megha, that is having complete equality in every sense. Because at the end of the day, I think both men and women have so much to learn from each other. The diverse workforce brings so much to the table. And equal opportunities, it should always be rewards commensurate with the efforts that are put in. I think that's very important. As we know that earlier there was, a question of, skills versus exposure. So we saw that everybody actually has the same set of skills, but the exposure actually defines the career path. That is what is defined out for the manpower or the employees, I would say. So we saw that essentially skills are available with all, but exposure is given, at least in the erstwhile days, it used to be given more to men than women in the manufacturing domain. And I think that stereotype is also changing. We ourselves ensure in our own organization, we give equal responsibilities, equal opportunities to both men and women. And we ensure that always it's an equitable treatment that is given out, be it, working. I mean, I very strongly believe that if you want to perform and excel, you have to put in the equal amount of efforts. I mean, we can't have I recall 20 years ago when I started my career, that time there were some shackles that women, employees were putting to themselves, that, we won't travel remote locations, we won't stay on if at all, even if the work demands, because, I mean, those kind of shackles they were putting on themselves. So they were actually even in a way, sort of not getting the requisite skills, honing of the skills, because they were putting shackles on themselves. And of course, a lot of times I personally counsel them, and I personally spoke with them, and I see all of that changing now dramatically. So actually, I also have key positions in my own organization, which are, both men and women are actually handling those positions with excellent, performance and accountability, and they're working as intrapreneurs actually within the organizations, which is basically, employees who work as entrepreneurs. And I think that is one of the most important attribute that I look for. I mean, we look at hiring for actually attitude and training for skills. I think that is what we focus on, and I think that has really worked very well in our domain. So I also have key positions, which are handled by men and women in my organization, and brilliantly so. So I think things are I can see that sea change, and I always believe it should be equitable treatment and no biases, no special treatment. At the end of the day, if you give all of them the equal amount of exposure, opportunities, they will all blossom, and they will, at the end of the day, take your organization in the direction that you want them to take it to. And of course, it's at the end of the day, we believe in working as a family. So that is something that I think it's a DNA of the organization, which comes from my father, who started the company, and now 57th year into the business, we continue that legacy, and we continue that. And I think it's really rewarded. Diversity wise, I still see a lot of scope, as Neelam rightly pointed out, that we still have to achieve 50% in the manufacturing domain. That itself is a challenge. But I think the more I try to therefore bridge that gap by also going to academia, and I have a very strong industry academia collaboration that I believe in, and I try to take interns from which are both equal amount of interns from colleges, and I go to the colleges and try to sort of talk to them at the foundation level. So at the end of the day, if you talk to them at that foundation level, that is where the seed is sort of embedded. And that's why I believe, and I've seen that changing now, because as Neelam rightly said earlier, even I saw most of the kids wanted to, especially the women wanted to get into, or even the guys wanted to get into the service industry. Lots of perks. It's a very glamorous job and all of that. Nobody wants to get their hands dirty in the manufacturing domain. But now, seriously, I see engineers wanting to actually get their hands dirty, hands-on work they want to do. They want to learn because they know that's the only way to do it. And I think that is a welcome change. And therefore, I urge, and I'm sure all of you are already doing it, that we should all, try to get to the academia early on and try to spread this message. And therefore, things are changing and will change for the manufacturing domain, and for it'll be a positive change for all of us. And hopefully, we will have more and more diversity. At the same time, we would have no challenges eventually for recruitments. So that's the eventual goal.
Thank you, Rajita. You talk a very sensitive thing, that yes, now the people are coming forward and they want to make their hands dirty. And it is up to us how we are seeing their hands, whether it is dirty or colorful. With that, I am moving to Chetali to understand actually the same kind of industry, which is logistics and supply chain. Chetali, we see a different kind of biasness towards that industry as well. So I want to understand from you one bold step this industry can take so that we can change the perspective toward that industry as well for the diverse workforce.
You know, honestly, sorry, but having been in this industry for almost 30 years, I'm not going to say that there is a bias. Sorry, it may not concur with what everybody's opinion is in general, but being part of the industry, having grown up over here, I have to say that there are no biases here. Was there a mindset that women didn't fit in? Yes, but that was only related to ops, because honestly, before the conditions were different. Now the situation is different. When I joined, we didn't have women doing ops, but when I started doing operations, nobody said that I couldn't do it, barring maybe a few people. Everybody was very open and willing to accept. And there are a lot of bold steps that have been taken to get women into inclusion. We've got associations play a very, very strong role in this, because they are the backbone of any industry. And I'm so privileged and honored to be a part of four of them. And at the association, we are doing a lot of work for women. We are also having the young generation. We are grooming them. We are upskilling them, skilling them, trying to get them in. And in fact, when I go to colleges or I'm invited to give lectures, not lectures per se, but speeches, and talk to the students, it is such a tickle to see more girls than men, or boys as they are. It's also such a pleasure to see that the girls are more focused on wanting to become something in this industry. And that's not because this industry is glamorous. We are far from being glamorous. It may seem from outside, but it is real hardcore work that we do. Also, this is an industry where outsiders and the kids are treated with the same level of respect and are given the same opportunities. This is something that I have to highlight, and I can't stop speaking enough of it. People say that it's a nepo industry, but actually it's not. The industry opens the doors. It's up to you whether you fit in or you don't fit in. If you fit in, it's the most beautiful thing that could ever happen in your life. If you don't fit in, then unfortunately, it could also be a very ugly thing. Having said that, we've had some amazing women doing some amazing work who come with absolutely no background in logistics. And the initiatives that the industry per se is taking is massive. So we have parents who are actively telling their daughters, please get into the business. We have, ports and airports who are sending out for jobs, they are approaching them like the port at Tuticorin. Instead of taking from internally, they decided to float the job openings in the small towns around Tuticorin. And to their surprise, and they had so many people who came in, and these are girls who are double degree, more educated than what I am, and half the people that I know, and they are doing such phenomenal work. And when we saw them, because I had taken a bunch of ladies on a field trip, Dr. Megha, it was such a delight and a shocker also, because I'm talking 20 to 24-year-old young girls. They are petite, they are short. I don't think anybody was more than 5.5 feet. And they were with B.Ed education, PhDs. We are talking science, physics, chem, environmental, such diverse educational fields, and none of them have families in logistics, and they just decided to join the port at a lark. So there were this group of 24 women who were doing some of the most complicated work that one could do at the port, and it was such a joy and honor to see them. So this is one of the safest industries that we have. We have the lowest possible, cases of sexual abuse or sexual harassment, as the case may be. I don't think I've ever heard of anything of that sort. Inter-office romances and all that don't come into, I don't pay attention to that. Also, the customs, the stakeholders, so whether we are talking the airports, we are talking the ports, the CFSs, ICTs, everybody takes care of you, when you are there, because at times you could just be the only woman around over there, and you could be surrounded by like 10, 15, 20 men, or maybe even 100 men. And it's genuinely a very safe place. The bias would have been the mindset that this is, would be in the, I think that we can't say it is after traveling the breadth and length of the country, visiting the airports, the land border ports, the ICDs and LPAs and all, what I have realized is that the bias is in our heads. It's more to do with our environment, the culture, the areas that we live in, is because it's the people around us who will say, oh, how can you come home at 8 o'clock in the night? Depending on whether you are in a tier 3 city or you are in a town and things. It's not the mindset of the women. Like there's this amazing woman who's working at the Landport station. She's the only woman in that entire station, and that station is almost about 200 acres. And she is alone. She's not scared. And her family lives, so she comes to work and she goes back. And I asked her and I said, "Are you okay?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'm absolutely okay." Um, when I'm at the airport, I'm at the hangar, and when we are handling our aviation shipments, I'm the only one around the entire airport that is the only woman around. But it doesn't scare me. And we have such amazing things. So I think it's the people's perspective, rather the perception that people have, that we need to change. There is no bias in this for this industry. I'm sorry if that's not the answer what you're looking for, but the fact is that it's the mindset of the people that you live around with, who don't really know what logistics is all about. So thanks to COVID, at least people know that we exist, because we are like that. I think when I die, this is going to go down as my favorite line. If it's going to come over there, is that we are like that spinal cord. You see, you feel the effects, but you never see the spinal cord. So for my industry, we've always been invisibly visible. People never notice us until somebody realizes, "Arey, mera shipment atak gaya hai," and now how am I going to find out? And that must be probably a courier thing. But otherwise, there is no visibility for us. So it's through the work in the last 5 7 years that everybody is on this whole bandwagon of the logistics part of it, and people now realize, or probably just have a fraction of an idea of the kind of complicated work that we do. So I akin that our industry is as good as the doctors and hospitals, because if it was not for us, there would be no mankind. Leave aside global trade and all, because how the hell would medicines reach people and vegetables reach people? So the bias is in the people's head, not really in the industry per se. It's one of the best industries to be part of. Sorry, I am very, very protective of the industry, and I love the industry. So that's why I'm going to say that it's the best to be in.
Thank you, Chetali. Even probably that is the ultimate purpose of this discussion, Then rather than speaking about the community, we say this is my industry. And the moment the all the workforce, all the people who are sitting in this panel discussion, they are started saying manufacturing is my industry. So we don't need invite from any other people. We don't need any policies. We don't need anyone else to tell us, okay, we are opening the door for you. Because that is my industry. I'm owning that industry. So beautifully important the point, Chetali. And that is
Thank you.
again that is again taking me to a beautiful metaphor which you have given us, that yes, probably we are connecting the manufacturing industry with the spinal cord, with the backbone of the entire ecosystem. And if this backbone is not there, how we will think of moving ahead? And the moment we are talking about diversity, inclusion, and equity, we are talking about the backbone. We are not asking something which is so flowery and which is so exclusive. And with that notion, I'm moving to Sujal, because Sujal, we started from biases, and Chatali has beautifully summarized that word bias. So I want to understand again from you that what is the challenge? We talked about skill, we talked about bias, we talked about culture, we talked about policies. Where do you see the real challenge in all those four dimensions?
So I think, okay, now this can be a very generic challenge for, any female member. What I have seen at various platforms, I work with a lot of, male members everywhere. And I mean, we female members, we women, I think we are made in a certain way, we are brought up in a certain way. What happens is, if there is some assignment, okay, if there is some opportunity, let's say, I'll give you an example. If there's some opportunity to take up a new project or a new assignment, uh, and if there is me, and if there is, some other male member, or hypothetically speaking, there is one male, one female, both of them, they have an equal opportunity to, grab that assignment. What happens is, how would a female, go about it? She would actually first think, am I 100% prepared for this? And she would wait, for herself to give, to get an answer that, oh, I am 110% prepared for this. And that is when she would actually jump on that opportunity. Whereas, how do male operate? Even if they are 60% sure of taking up that opportunity, but the confidence level is so high, I mean, they would not even bother to ask themselves or think. They would simply go ahead and take that up, and then they will start preparing for, whatever they are supposed to do, of course. So maybe, in both these cases, if that project or that assignment was given to a male member or a female member, the outcome would have been same, but the processing time, because we always feel that we have, I mean, I would call this a bias of overqualification, as in, only when I feel that I'm qualified or maybe overqualified to do something, I would be 100% confident to take that up, whereas it is not the same with men. And I don't know whether this is, a cultural thing, or this is something, I mean, maybe it's the DNA, or maybe it's something, to do with how we are made. But then this is a big gap which can be systematically approached, and we should tell ourselves that we do not always have to be 120% sure. We can, take things up, and along the way we can be prepared for it. Another thing which I also feel is, we have a tendency of doing it all. Now, this is again, how, this is how we have seen our grandmothers or our mothers, or, any female members in our family taking care of everything. I mean, we are multitaskers and we are so proud of it. So we want to do it all. And that happens, we bring that mentality to our work as well, to our profession as well. And I think that is, what doesn't help us at times. That is what, when I say us, I'm talking about all the women in general. This is what do not help when you are talking about leadership roles, and when you are talking about, capital allocation, when you want to be part of the board meetings, and when you want to be part of the P&L and the capex approvals and things like that. I think this is where, we differ a lot from, how men operate. So yes, I mean, this is, I don't know, Dr. Megha, if I, answered your question if this is what you are looking for. But yes, this is a major shift where I see we need to change, and we need to systematically, rather, very proactively keep on telling ourselves that, we have to be careful about things like this. And I would look at it, not as inspirational level, but let's say as an architectural level. Okay. Like when you are building a home or when you are building any infrastructure, do you add pillars after the building is complete? No, right? We add the pillars before. I mean, we think of the pillars and we put the pillars while we are actually building, the place. So let us see, let us think of inclusion as the pillars of any building. Okay, it cannot come from outside. It cannot be a later or an afterthought. It has to be something which is, part of the building. So it cannot be an interior design thing कि ठीक है ये पीस लाके यहाँ पे रख दिया, अभी आज ये इसको नहीं चाहिए निकाल दिया, you bring something else. And so it cannot be like that. It has to be the foundation that determines stability. It has to be, the framework that determines the load distribution, and it has to be the design that also determines the accessibility. So I think, this would sum it up. I would like to sum this up that inclusion is like architecture. If we think of it as architecture, we can take care of a lot of things. Yeah.
Wonderful metaphors again. So we came up with, initially Chaitali gave us a metaphor of spinal cord, and now the Sujal gave us a metaphor of architectural design. She's talking about pillars. Neelam, I want to understand with you that while combining these two metaphors, either the spinal cord or the pillar in terms of architectural design, what action as a leaders we should take now, not gradually, now, so that actually we can build up the industry 4.0 in terms of innovation, future workforce, and leadership. Now, not gradually.
Sure. Thank you, Megha. Few things which I believe and also that I have researched out along with, and the others can also add in. It's very, very important whether it is a gender, not from the gender lens. One has to be prepared for the future of the industry. We are talking about EV, we are talking about connected vehicle, we are talking about smart manufacturing industry 5.0 now coming up. We are talking about ESG, understanding. And that is where I believe as a workforce, whether it's a male or a female, they need to be prepared for the future skilling. And that's very, very important because if one has to be relevant and competitive enough, it is very, and that is where at WIMA we have this pillar of preparing them for the future skill need, and that is for the industry as well, and that's the first point that I see. Secondly, I like social points that and even Chaitali was mentioning, when you are giving an assignment, and this is mainly from the female workforce, I want to say, take the challenge, because many a times I have seen, and during my experience as well, people hesitate, oh, this has not been tried out, can I do some, whether I can do or not. So they have their own mental blocks many a time, and it's very, very important because, I'll tell you, I'll give you a very small example. In my very first company, there were no women in the shop floor, and I was put on the well line. And naturally, I have to ask to permission to wear a regular uniform like the other operators, and they had not tried this earlier. So, but the point is, still I asked them that yes, I am comfortable doing that, and I can do it. They did not even think of that. Okay, there could be a woman on the well line and can do the spot welding. The point here is, if you yourself is not going to tell that you can take up this challenge, the industry is also like, okay, whether we should give this or not. That's the second. So do experiments with the opportunities and the responsibilities that will make the administration as well that yes, these roles can also be open for, to all the genders. Third and very important point, mainly from the perspective of the manufacturing industry, I want to tell now it is a real time that we need to design our lines as a gender neutral lenses. We want more workforce on the shop floor, including both men and female. But if you see, there are many lines who are not designed for us. And Sarika rightly point out, not only the lines, but also the time, the Thursday off at MSCB. And I have seen there are many lines where one has to lift the weight of 10 kg or 12 kg. Now consider, for a women body, it's not possible. So when we are designing the lines, and it's very important to all the people who are part of it, do see from the gender neutral lens. You design the line so that anybody can work it out there. You don't have to think whether I have to deploy a male or a female, because then only we can invite more and more inclusive, even on the shop floor lines. And fourth and most important point, which I mentioned earlier as well, that we need to block this leakage what's been happening. If we will not be blocking this leakage at the middle career level, then we will struggle at the up level as well. And that is the reason exactly that this 2 decades not much has moved into the this thing. Oh yes, we know that there is now a mandate to have women at the board. So there are organizations who are putting it up, but it should happen gradually and naturally. It should not happen forcefully. Okay, because we need to get the women on board, so we deploy or we hire. It should not happen like that. There should be a natural transition into it. And as I said, that yes, we are 15 to 17%. We need to increase this, because any industry, whether it is a service or a manufacturing, they need to represent the representation of the population that it is. And then we know, okay, this industry is stabilized, it is growing. Because today, manufacturing only contributes 17% in the India GDP, and service sector is already coming to the top, and they are already saturated. I should not use the word saturated, but they have already contributed to the max that they are. Point is, it is the time for manufacturing to rise, and to rise from 17% to going to 34%. It is important that we have to look from the workforce point of view, both the genders, and skilled for the future. I'll just give you one small example. The people, especially from the skilling point of view, that we are by 2030, and then by 2045, this current skilling will become irrelevant. We need to get our workforce skill for AI. We have already seen in the summit as well. We need to skill, this thing, our workforce to work with the Gen Z and Zen Alpha. That will be a very different challenge. So all this has to be included, and surely others can also add, but this is what could think of, that we need to be prepared for the future of skilling for 2035 and 2030. And our current skilling, we need to reskill and relearn, in fact, the people who are listening here, plus the new generations who will be coming up and joining the workforce.
Thank you, Neelam. Again, a quick question to Aarti. Aarti, what should happen now so that we can change the future workforce and the industry innovation?
Yeah, I think the step forward is collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. I think we can't say it enough. At every point, I think we need to keep our eyes, ears, and minds open to how we can move forward. I think very rightly put, made a note of it, gender neutral thought process, so that we can include more. We can make everything more accessible to more people. So let's see how we can build this in. Yeah.
Thank you, Aarti. Over to you, Sujata. What should happen now, in addition to gender neutrality, collaboration?
Yeah, so in fact, even Nilam said the same thing, the continuous learning and adaptivity. See, you need to be adaptive, because this is the next what we have to, the way she said that, yes, how you are going to be adaptive when you need to deal with the new gen alpha or gen, the next generation which is going to come, even the technology. So alone technology is not going to survive till the time the people are not going to be adaptive to that technology, the AI assisted decisions, the data driven decisions. So it's not only that you are technology trained, but you need to be digitally confident. Then only things are going to move in that now direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Sujata. Amita, we all know that you deal with a lot of Gen Zs in your organization. So again, what should change now so that we can build up the future workforce, which is resilient, which is ready to take up all the challenges?
So to whatever has been said so far, so there are 2 points I would like to highlight over here. One is the gatekeeping of information. That is where the mid-level people wouldn't be able to grow. So that's the first thing. Second thing that I would really want to start now is then probably giving them the independence of taking the decisions. Now, see, we are somewhere at a point that we are not only the ones who are supporting the power or sitting next to the power. We should be the ones who are making the power decisions. So that is very, very important, that we don't just keep them for the for some small work or some not giving them the power to take the decision. That's the one thing. Future lies in the decision making. That is what that Sheryl Sandberg also said, that in the future there will be no female leaders, there will be only leaders. And with the diversity, that is the first thing that we can always incorporate in the decision making, that we leave the industry as a leader when it is more powerful than when we were there. So two things again. One is the decision making, and second is the gatekeeping of the information. We should make it as transparent as possible so that they are able to grow from the middle level to the next level. Yeah. Thank you.
Wonderful. Coming to you, Rujita, in addition to gender neutrality, collaboration, flexibility, and transparency, what else you can add to make the workforce so resilient and effective?
Sure. So I feel there are, of course, many things to be done, but I think what we need to do is put more and more women in the P&L roles, which are very, very important, be it business heads, technical divisions, R&D centers, etc. Also, redesigning the career architecture around life stages for both men and women is equally important. As I said, equality very important. Also, have normalizing women in the core technical activity, and that's extremely important. And as one of my co-panelists also said a little earlier, that moving from the mentorship model to the sponsorship or advocacy model is extremely important and will go a long way in actually having more and more entrepreneurs in the organization. And the more exposure we give, the more opportunities we will create, and that is just going to benefit all of us. And I think that is very important for us to take cognizance of and implement in our organizations. And of course, eliminate the biases and prove it again biases that we have, and any kind of prejudices that we have in organizations. I think so. I think with that, rest of the core panelists have also covered all the key areas.
Wonderful. I'm just moving as per my screen. So coming to you, Chetali. Chetali, we are seeking more metaphors in addition to spinal cord, and picking up the thread which Rujita has said, intrapreneurship. We are seeking more intrapreneurship inside the organization.
Sorry, is it my screen that froze or did Dr. Megha freeze?
Yeah, Dr. Megha is frozen. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Chitali, you can add in.
Okay, all right. So for the industry in the last decade is a classic example of entrepreneurship. Majority of the women who have started their own companies used to work for other companies, and then they decided to take the leap and set up their own. Some of them have started off with 2 people, some of them have started off with a bang. Just today, I got a call from a young girl who's quit her job and started her entrepreneurial journey in the world of freight forwarding and customs clearance based out of Chennai. And yeah, this industry is a perfect example of when you stop being a manager or you stop being an employee and you get on to wanting onto your entrepreneurship. We have courses that help just not women, but also men, help them through this journey of setting up. A lot of us act as mentors. There are well-wishers that are available. There is the constant skilling and upskilling, because this is one industry where we can never say that we have 100% knowledge. There is always scope of learning and scope of improvement. Like my dad, he's still learning at his age after spending 40 plus years in the industry. And he tells me practically every week that, today I learned something new, I learned something new by talking to somebody. So this industry is very beautiful in that way. Sorry, I don't mean to do it, but it just comes out naturally because this is such an amazing industry. And we've had such amazing women who set off and have taken the plunge and have started their own company. So Dr. Megha, anybody who wants to is most welcome to. There are a lot of handholders who would be more than happy to guide them, to train them. Just one thing that people need to remember is that whether you shift roles, your responsibility doesn't stop, your leadership doesn't stop. So because you become an entrepreneur and you have a designation on your credit, on your visiting card that could say either an entrepreneur or a founder, does not mean that you have more responsibility than when you were working for an organization. I think you have more responsibility then, because it's your nature that will define the kind of leader that you are going to be. So for people who are setting out on their entrepreneurship, please understand and please note that this is not an industry for the faint-hearted. I don't think any industry is for the faint-hearted. You have to put in your 15, 16 hours a day. You have to make your sacrifices. You will have to at some point choose your career and your company over your family lives, as maybe whether you are single or you are married, whatever the situation may be. And you will have to work extremely hard. There will be times when you will be tested, you will be humiliated, not because you are a woman, it's just because the situation demands it like that. When you are in the service industry, the client always feels that they have a right to talk to you in any manner, no matter what your designation and your position in the organization is. So you take that with a pinch of salt. And you have to be available 24/7, because this is an industry that works 24/7. So you need to know how not to take your work baggage home with you, but that doesn't happen in the initial years. Collaboration is the way to go forward. Don't try and do everything on your own. It's initially we all micromanage, but we have to learn how to macro to come back to the micro level again. And working with the Gen Zs is, I think, probably the most painful, as well as an eye opener as to who our future leaders are going to be. And their brains are such amazing. I think I just call them a species by themselves, because I've never come across people like them, the way they think and the way they do. There's so much to learn from them. But yes, entrepreneurs are more than welcome in the industry. And every day we have somebody new mushrooming up. And we have so many more coming up in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. And they absolutely rock. Thank you.
Thank you, Chetali. Over to you, Sarika. Your message that yes, how we should build up Industry 4.0. You're on mute, Sarika.
Yeah, Industry 4.2. Everybody's been talking and talking. The papers have been full of it. So Industry 4.2, the automation, digitization, AI, that's already coming. That's already coming. But what is very important for leaders or for engineers or anybody in this industry to understand that this has to come. You have to go beyond just understanding, just generating data. You have to understand how to use this data. You have to understand how to implement this data, how to use those dashboards so that you can go ahead and do some innovation more. So I think that's very critical, because right now we are seeing a lot of data which is being generated, and whether it is actually being put to use and how it is being put to use is something that I think the industry is struggling with. So that's very important. Yeah.
Truly said, Sarika. Truly, data handling and data management is a big challenge in today's current scenario. Sujal, your final word on the topic which we are discussing today, Industry 4.0.
Yeah, so I think to make this more resilient and effective, a lot is already covered. But I would like to add a couple of points over there. Chaitali was telling that, logistics per se, even if there's a female member surrounded by 100 men, it's very safe. However, not all the industries would be same. Okay, for logistics, she was talking from her own experience and example. But institutionalizing safe and high performance work environments is very, very important because resilience requires, psychological and physical safety. So strict zero tolerance workplace safety policies are what every industry should have in place. Of course, the POSH implementation is mandatory, but I would say POSH is, post-mortem. As in when we talk about POSH comes into picture only after the incidents has already happened. And we have also seen a lot of stigma again, around POSH, as in people are not that open to report certain incidents that happen. So having POSH implementation is mandatory. It's really required, of course. But POSH is, we should create an environment where, we do not really require POSH to be used. Okay. So like shift timing policies is one thing, we can have the timing policies in a way wherein the women feel more safer, or else there can be, of course, the balance of productivity is also important, but then safety should also be kept in the mind. Apart from the safe environments, I would also like to bring one more point to the table, that ESG. Now, all these big, large OEMs, they have this compliance of ESG, but ESG should not only become, a part of compliance. As in, this is such a beautiful thing that has been introduced, and there's a reason behind it. So we should, try to have the ESG compliance in the true sense, for what it stands and for what it is there. Of course, for large OEMs, implementing inclusion, getting more females on board, training them, skilling, upskilling is comparatively easier compared to the SMEs and MSMEs. Okay, when we talk about, there are a lot of SMEs and MSMEs, there would be like, a huge chunk of female members working for SMEs and MSMEs. So maybe, making diversity matrix compulsory as a part of supplier evaluation for SMEs and MSMEs can be a way forward, where we can actually bring more inclusivity in the smaller manufacturing units as well. So this would tie leadership, incentives with the inclusive KPIs. And of course, it would, that also means more women representation across the places. So I think these are the points which I can think of, apart from, what is already covered. Yeah.
Thank you everyone for bringing up the different perspective, giving us the different metaphors, giving us the different and diverse vision to the topic which we were discussing for the last 90 minutes. And that is so heartening to notice and witness today, that we all sat for 90 minutes and came up with different ideas. That yes, I asked one question, you all came up with a bunch of ideas, with a bunch of pointers that yes, this should be done for Industry 4.0. And one important pointer, we were not talking about from the gender perspective. We all were talking about from the perspective of gender neutrality. So that's a beautiful thing. We are not talking about women in manufacturing. We are actually talking about how we can shape the manufacturing sector in future, in the years to come. So kudos to all of you. I'm really grateful for giving up the time, bringing up the thoughts to the surface, to the table, to this room, and for the diverse audience who have joined us from the different parts.